Right, hello guys, and welcome back to a new series I'm titling Forever Builds, where we're going to cover several upcoming builds that I have perfected to the absolute extreme, factoring in set bonuses, stat distributions, optimal subclass makeup, weapon choices, and everything in between, making them the best versions of what they could possibly be, and thus being this way forever because the game isn't receiving any more major sandbox updates. You could be watching this build within the first week of upload or even 3 to 4 years down the line, and it will still be just as dominant as it was the moment it was put together. And today we're kicking off with one of my favorite builds of all time, the Heresy Arc Warlock Chaos Reach Super Spam build, complete with an insanely fun gameplay loop allowing you to cast your super up to 4 times within a single minute, and it's all explained right here. So if you enjoyed today's content, be sure to leave a like and subscribe, but without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so the first thing we are going to cover is how we are going to be getting our supers back so quickly to the point where we can get literally 4 of them within a single minute. And the first piece of the puzzle comes in the form of the Geomag Stabilizer's exotic legs for the Warlock. Geomags have the perk Close Enough, which states damaging targets with Chaos Reach extends its duration, collecting Ionic Traces grants you energy for Chaos Reach. Sprinting while near max bolt charge will grant stacks over time. Now that last part is less important, but the two important parts are the first, where we are going to be getting more damage for our super, which is very good. In fact, it over doubles the damage of your Chaos Reach versus a single target. And number 2, collecting Ionic Traces gives us energy for Chaos Reach, and it's actually a very substantial amount. It's 4% per trace, but we are actually going to be increasing that amount that we get per trace with other things that we'll discuss later in the setup. But just at a baseline level, this is how much a single or 2 Ionic Traces in this case give with regards to our super energy. Collecting 2 traces gives us nearly a quarter of our super, which is pretty insane. So if you can imagine, if we make a lot of traces, which we will be with this build, we are going to be getting our super insanely quickly. So how do we make lots of traces? Well, the first piece of that puzzle is going to be via the electrostatic mind aspect for the Warlock. It states defeating targets with arc abilities or defeating jolted or blinded targets creates an Ionic Trace, and there is no cooldown on this aspect, meaning if we inflict enough jolt, or if we inflict jolt to every single enemy in front of us, they will all make an Ionic Trace and we can just collect them all after that. It also states that collecting an Ionic Trace makes you amplified, but that's actually kind of redundant because we're getting kills with so many arc things that we're going to be amplified 24/7 anyway, but it's just there because why not? Our second way of getting more Ionic Traces is going to be the full 4-piece Luminopotent set bonus. Now, you can earn Luminopotent from some world sources, but mainly it comes from solo ops activities and fire team ops activities, and the bonus focus for these can rotate daily, so it's actually very easy to get a full set of this armor up and running for the build. And the reason we want the full Luminopotent set is because both of its perks benefit the build insanely well. So for starters, the 2-piece Ionic Overclock. While amplified, your fusion rifles, linear fusion rifles, and heat weapons gain increased handling, reload, and vent speeds. It's a quality of life perk. We are going to be using a fusion rifle of the exotic variety, but we'll get to that later. The 4-piece though is really where it's at. Shock and Clear. Final blows with jolt or against jolted combatants create Ionic Traces. Now, if that's sounding familiar, that's because this is basically an additional instance of the electrostatic mind aspect. And the best part about this is that it also doesn't have a cooldown. So you can basically think of this build as having 2 electrostatic minds at once. This is why, because now if I get a kill versus a jolted enemy, I will not make 1, I will instead make 2 Ionic Traces. As you can see there, we make 2 per jolted enemy kill. It's literally double. And as I said, there is no cooldown on either the aspect or the set bonus. So if we put it all together and get kills versus jolted enemies, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have our super. Instantly, just like that. Of course, we did kill more than 5 or 6 enemies, but that is the amount of shots of my fusion that I shot, and oh my god, I love this loop so much. This is so much fun. You'll be seeing it from the gameplay in the background. We are literally just printing supers and Ionic Traces as we go. So the overarching goal of the build is just to jolt as many things as possible, try and find as many ways of applying this debuff as we can, because if we kill enemies that are jolted, we get more Ionic Traces, which means more supers and more fun. So let's get into how the subclass is going to be able to help us achieve this goal, starting with the abilities. Of course, we want Chaos Reach. I've gone for Healing Rift as well because generally arc classes aren't as tanky as others, so having a little bit of extra healing is very nice. Gone for the Chain Lightning melee ability, number 1 because it applies Jolt, and number 2 because it has 2 charges by default. I've also gone for the Pulse Grenade because it is my favorite arc grenade. It's the one that I like the most, but this is also personal preference. Electrostatic Mind, like we discussed earlier, for creating Ionic Traces off cooldown. Then for the second aspect, this is a bit of a personal preference, but I would definitely encourage you more in the way of Ionic Sentry. This is the aspect that after getting enough kills with either arc weapons or arc abilities, lets you spawn an autonomous arc turret that just deals damage over time and applies bolt charge with every hit that it gets. It's very good because it applies blind on impact, which also lets it stun unstoppable champions, plus it lasts a good while, it's around 15 seconds or so, and with certain fragments it also allows it to apply Jolt. So I'm definitely a big fan of Ionic Sentry. However, you could take Lightning Surge if you found it fun, and Arc Soul is again another good replacement for Ionic Sentry. However, it does not have access to blind, so it doesn't have as much utility as the Sentry does. This is just my preference and my recommendation. Like I mentioned just a moment ago, the first fragment we are taking is Spark of Shock, which is going to make it so our arc grenades jolt target, so that's going to be good for our pulse grenade, but this also applies to our Ionic Sentry as well. So not only is it generating bolt charge for us, we are getting jolt applied as well, which is very good, which means more Ionic Traces, you guys know the deal. For the second fragment, we have Spark of Resistance, which makes it so while surrounded by combatants, you are more resistant to incoming damage. And by the way, this is a 25% damage resistance, which is pretty good. For the third fragment, this is very important, we have Spark of Discharge. This one states that arc weapon final blows have a chance to create an Ionic Trace. Collecting an Ionic Trace grants you a stack of bolt charge, so we are getting even more traces, and the way this works, by the way, is that it is on a counter system. What that means is getting a kill versus a red bar fills 33% of a hidden meter, which if you get 2 more kills, fully fills the meter and then gives you an Ionic Trace from that third kill. It also fills the meter to 100% from major enemies or above, which are orange bars or above. So basically kill 3 red bars or 1 orange bar and you've got yet another Ionic Trace. And then finally for the fourth fragment, we have Spark of Frequency. This one is going to make it so melee hits increase your equipped weapon's reload speed and stability for a short duration, while amplified, the effects are increased and you gain increased stacks of bolt charge from all sources, and it's actually double, meaning that if a source of bolt charge gives you 1 stack, it will now give you 2 when you are amplified, which is going to be very good for looping into some of our artifact perks, especially because a lot of them are centered around healing ourselves as well. But basically, Shock for Jolt, which gives more traces, Resistance for the resistance, we have Discharge for even more traces, and then Frequency for more bolt charge, which means more healing and potentially more traces as well. I do want to say that with the amount of Ionic Traces we are making, you could actually swap out Spark of Discharge for Spark of Beacons instead. This one states that while you are amplified, your arc special or heavy ammo weapon final blows create a blinding explosion, which is very good for crowd control and survivability because, like I said, arc warlocks are less tanky. But with how much destruction we are going to be causing with our weapons and our Chaos Reach, it isn't necessarily needed. I just thought I would throw that out there in case you are surviving less with the build when you are using it. Okay, so now onto the weapons. You've seen it from some of the demos I've shown already, but the most important weapon by far is going to be Delicate Tomb. This weapon is made for this build. It fits so perfectly, and here is why. This is an Arc Exotic Fusion Rifle, and it has the secondary trait Tempest Cascade, and this is where it's all at. It states collecting an Ionic Trace overcharges this weapon's next shot, jolting targets on hit. And with Tempest Cascade, this is a 100% damage increase for that shot. And because of the amount of Ionic Traces we are making, this basically means that every shot of the fusion is going to be under Tempest Cascade, so we have our fusion literally dealing double damage all the time. And furthermore, firing this weapon from the hip actually improves its damage by a further 20%. And not only that, the intrinsic trait, Traitor's Vessel, states that final blows with this weapon have a chance to generate Ionic Traces. So literally almost everything that we've spoken about so far is able to give us Ionic Traces. And for Delicate Tomb, this is 10% chance per red bar and is a 100% chance per orange bar and above. So it's kind of like Spark of Discharge, but a little bit different in a way. Finally, the Catalyst is amazing for quality of life because it states collecting an Ionic Trace partially reloads the magazine from reserves, and this is actually 4 bullets, so every trace that you collect reloads 4 bullets, and it only holds 6 in the mag, so you're basically never going to have to reload this thing as long as you are collecting traces, which you bloody will be. And you've probably seen it already from the gameplay, but the best part about Delicate Tomb is that Tempest Cascade is able to infinitely loop itself because you get kills with the jolt from the shot or from the enhanced shot, and then that kill gives you a trace, and you can just go on, so on and so on and so on It's so good, guys. It's so good. This weapon is amazing. It's amazing for this build. But anyway, let's carry on. Now we're going to talk about stats. And stats are very important for this build because you are going to want to main your Delicate Tomb because of how good it is for the build. So we are going to start with 180 weapons, or as high weapons as you can get. Mine is at 180, and actually I have a weapons font on my geomags as well, which is going to allow me to get up to 200 whenever I am holding armor charge. So I am going to be able to main Delicate Tomb because every brick that I create is now going to be guaranteed double size. After that, I prioritize super because this is obviously a super spam build. We are going to want to be dealing a little bit of extra damage with our super. I've gone for 130 natural, and then I also have a super font on my helmet, which gets me up to 150, which at that level is a plus 22.5% increase to your super damage. And then after that, I would prioritize class and then into grenade and melee. But to be honest, because our main grenade is Ionic Sentry anyway, if both of these stats are 0, I actually wouldn't notice a single difference in the build. That being said though, I am making up the grenade stat a little bit with a grenade font on my gloves, but we'll get to the mods of the build in a later section. In terms of the pieces that allowed me to get to this distribution, my helmet is specialist with a tertiary stat in grenade and a tuning in weapons. My gauntlets are powerhouse with a tertiary stat in grenade and tuning in weapons. My chest piece is also powerhouse with a tertiary stat in class and a tuning in class. My geomag stabilizers are paragon with a tertiary stat in weapons and a tuning in weapons. And then finally, my class item is powerhouse with a tertiary stat in health. However, that could be better, that could be class, it could be grenade or melee. Health is just a bit of a waste in this case. Okay, so now we're going to be moving on to the artifact, and the one we are taking is the Tablet of Ruin, the episode Heresy artifact. And again, much like Delicate Tomb, this artifact was literally made for this build. It fits so perfectly. So let's go through every mod and why we are choosing it. First of all, we are taking Limit Break. It is a tier 3 mod. It states casting a super while you are critically wounded or have an elemental buff matching your super element grants a period of increased super damage. This is actually a 15% buff to your super, and it works even if you have a single stack of bolt charge. So again, even more super damage for the already super spam build. Next, we are taking Defibrillating Blast, again a tier 3, which makes it so stunning a champion grants maximum stacks of bolt charge, damaging targets with bolt charge, jolts them, and heals you. The amount of HP is actually around 55, which is pretty good. That's around a 70 health orb pickup for comparison. Next, moving into the tier 2 mods, we are taking Flashover. This one is going to make it so when you gain maximum bolt charge, you also become amplified, but more importantly, your lightning bolts deal more damage, and this is actually a 50% buff to your bolt charge lightning, so very good to have alongside our build, gives it a bit more damage output. I've also gone for Unraveling Orbs, which is going to make it so picking up an Orb of Power or a Tangle grants strand weapons unraveling rounds, and that's because the weapon you're seeing in the gameplay, my primary weapon, is a strand weapon, but you can have this to be whatever you like it to be. It doesn't have to be a strand weapon. I just put this on here because there's just a bit of synergy. Then I'm also taking Gold from Lead to make it so picking up special ammo has a chance to grant heavy ammo. Then for the tier 1 mods, we have Elemental Siphon, again very important. Rapid final blows with a kinetic weapon or a weapon matching your equipped super create an elemental pickup, aka Ionic Trace, that matches your equipped super. Then second part, elemental pickups grant matching super energy when they are collected. So we are getting even more super energy for collecting traces than we are just from geomags, and we are making more of them with just a single mod. I am so surprised that this is a tier 1 mod, to be honest with you. Then finally, the last artifact mod we have is Dielectric. Defeating arc debuff targets grants bolt charge, great for more bolt charge. Then the second part, rapidly defeating arc debuff targets spawns an orb of power and heals a small portion of health, so even more heals for our less tanky class. You'll probably notice it from the gameplay, but a lot of these mods work in the background without you ever having to really think about them. The healing from Dielectric just happens naturally, same from Defibrillating Blast because you're triggering so much bolt charge everywhere that you go, and Limit Break is never not going to be active because chances are you are going to have bolt charge or be amplified 24/7 when you are running around with this build. So finishing it all off with the mods on the helmet, I'm taking one special ammo finder to make my ammo brick generation even better. I also have a super font to bring my natural 130 super all the way up to 150, and an arc siphon so that double kills with Delicate Tomb spawn orbs. For the gauntlets, I have a grenade font to improve my stats ever so slightly, a bolstering detonation to give me more class ability energy on grenade damage, and an arc loader for quality of life. Chest piece is resist mods like usual, just match it to the activity you are playing. Then for the boots, I actually have a rather important mod, and that is Elemental Charge. Because we are making so many Ionic Traces, we are going to be activating this mod basically all the time, so we will never ever run out of armor charge, meaning that our fonts will never fall off. Speaking of, I am also taking a weapons font font on my boots to raise me from 180 to 200 weapons, and an arc scavenger so that I get more ammo per pickup from my delicate tomb. Lastly, for the class item, I have a class font, powerful attraction, and time dilation to make all of my fonts and armor charges last longer. As far as the optimal gameplay loop for this build is concerned, you simply just have to open up with a source of jolt. The best way I find is with a grenade to create those first few ionic traces, and after that the loop is basically self-sufficient. You have delicate tomb going with Tempest Cascade after every shot, then simply pop super whenever you get it and just be wasteful with it. You get the super back so goddamn fast, you might as well just pop it every single time that it is given to you. Be wasteful. Note, you can also use Ionic Sentry to stun unstops because of the arc blind, and that's about it. This build is insanely fun to use. You get your supers back so quickly, it feels so good, and I only wish that we still had the nether activity around like we did in Heresy so that I could play like I did way back in the day. But that is going to do it for entry number 1 of the Forever Build series. If you are curious about the fashion I used, here it is. I'm using the SRL shader Shimmer with the brand new digital devil ornaments from the season pass, and of course the dim link for the build is going to be down in the description box below for you to copy it hassle-free. Anyway, I really hope you enjoyed the build, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now, dear viewer.